Welcome back to Introduction to Management. I'm Ludmila Neagu, and this is part number 3. In this part of our lecture, we are going to start talking about organizational control and culture. And again, everything we talk about, you have all the details in your notes. So feel free to use your notes. Now, the first task facing managers is to establish the structure of task and reporting relationships that will allow organizational members to use resources most efficiently and effectively. Structure alone, however, does not provide incentive or motivation for people to behave in the ways that help achieve organizational goals. The managerial functions of organizing and controlling are inseparable, and all effective managers must learn to make them work together in a harmonious way. We're going to look in detail at the nature of organizational control, and we are going to describe the steps in the control process. We're also going to talk about 3 types of control available to managers to control and influence organizational members: output control, behavior control, and clan control. The concept of culture, we're also going to analyze it and how it impacts the management of an organization and the behavior of its people. We're also going to explain the function of organizational culture in creating organizational structure. Excuse me. Now, let's talk a little bit about what's called the control experiments. And listen to this. In Search of Excellence, the Peters and Waterman study of America's excellent corporations recounted an experiment conducted by an industrial psychologist. What happened during this experiment? The subjects were given some difficult puzzles to solve and some rather dull proofreading to do. While they attempted these chores, a raucous audio tape consisting of one person speaking Spanish, 2 people speaking Armenian, a mimeograph machine running, a chattering typewriter, and street noise ran in the background. Half the subjects were given a button they could push to suppress the noise. The other half were not. Those with buttons to push solved 5 times more puzzles and made 1/4 as many proofreading errors as those who had no button. The news was that never once, and the experiment was repeated several times, never once did anyone ever push his or her button. The mere fact that people perceived that they had a little bit of control over their destiny, the option of pushing the button in this case, led to an enormous improvement in performance. Now, give it some thought for a minute. And we are going to talk now about what is called delegation and mistakes. Kenneth H. Olson, founder and CEO of Digital Equipment Corporation, is also known for his autocratic style. However, at the same time, he strongly believes in delegating responsibility, something other computer entrepreneurs have found difficult to do. In delegating responsibility, Mr. Olson was always willing to forgive workers' mistakes. John F. Smith, Digital's 12th employee and later the vice president for engineering and manufacturing, recalls buying a $7,000 soldering machine, a huge investment at the time, that proved to be unreliable. He says he came in nights and weekends to adjust it so Mr. Olson would not realize his error. Ultimately, Mr. Smith bought a replacement machine, moved the lemon to a vacant storeroom, covered it with a canvas, and thought he had gotten away with it. Several years later, he came across the machine. Now remember, this is a guy who thought nobody would figure out what happened. So several years later, he came across the machine and idly lifted the covering. He found a handwritten sign that read, Smith Foley, signed Ken Olson. Now, in conclusion for now, about organizational control and culture. Controlling is the process whereby managers monitor and regulate how efficient and how effectively an organization and its members are performing the activities necessary to achieve organizational goals. Controlling is a four-step process. The first step in the process is establishing performance standards. Step number 2, measuring performance. Step number 3, comparing actual performance against standards. Step number 4, evaluating results and initiating corrective action. Output control and behavior control and organizational culture will also be part of our lecture in this part. Now let's talk a little bit about managing organizational structure. In this particular chapter, we'll present the factors that influence management's choice of a structure and how management then assign tasks within that particular structure. We'll also talk about the types of organizational structures, and we'll explain the reasons to centralize and decentralize authority. We will also talk about why managers must coordinate and integrate jobs and functions, divisions, and the role of alliances and network structures. In order to organize and control, managers must design an organizational architecture that makes the best use of resources to produce the goods and services customers want. Because ultimately, every single business out there has to produce something that the customer wants to buy, whether it is services or products. Every single business, every single company out there sells something that the consumer wants, because without the consumer and without the consumer wanting to buy that particular service or product, there will be no businesses. Also, managers must also be able to respond to the external environment and all the challenges that it provides. We're also going to talk about various organizational structures along with the various factors that determine the organizational design choices that managers make. And now for a moment, let's talk about challenging ethical issues. There was an article in Fast Company. It's a website called www.fastcompany.com. The article is called 5 Most Common Lies in Business, and it's written by Alice Van Housen. The lie is, people are our most important asset. The truth is that people are our most worrisome and unpredictable asset. Our important assets are really our financial assets. The lie is, this was a rational decision. The truth is, I wanted to do this. The lie is, we judge people on their performance. However, the article states that the truth behind that is, I judge your performance based on how much I like you. Think about that for a second. The lie is, this is business. It isn't personal. The truth is, everything is personal. The lie is, the customer comes first. The truth is, I come first. Again, this is from an article called Lies, the 5 Most Common Lies in Business. In an era of downsizing and cost cutting, when many jobs are cut in the interest of improving the company's bottom line, do you think corporations may be deceiving their employees about how much they are valued? Just give it a thought for a second, because the issue will come up during our class. And now the last subject for this part of our lecture is human resource management, a topic that I'm sure most of you are familiar with. We're going to look at strategic management of human resources, recruiting and selecting employees, training and development, performance appraisal and feedback, and determining pay and benefits. HR is an increasingly important aspect of building competitive organizations. We're going to discuss the HR functions as well as the legal, ethical, and technical aspects of human resource management. All management should have awareness of human resources topics, because all managers participate in attracting and retaining employees and ensuring that they perform at a high level. Human resource management includes all the activities that managers engage in to ensure that their organizations are able to attract, retain, and effectively utilize human resources. Critical human resources functions include recruitment and selection, as we said, training and development, and performance appraisal and feedback. Pay and benefits are also important components of managing human resources, and some benefits are mandated by law. We're also going to talk a little about labor unions and collective bargaining. Now, in conclusion of this part of our lecture about Introduction to Management, I thought I would read you some memorable job interviews and what people did during those interviews, or what they said. And these are true. The world's largest temporary personnel service for accounting, bookkeeping, and information systems, called Accutemps, conducted a nationwide survey of executives about the most unusual job interview they have ever conducted. And below are some of those results. Below are some of the, what I'm going to tell you actually are some of the things those managers said, people that were interviewed did or said during the interview. Let's see. They apologized for being late and said they accidentally locked their clothes in the closet. Another one. Applicant walked in and inquired why he was there. Now, don't forget, this happened during a job interview. So the specific person, of course, was supposed to be aware that he was at a job interview with company X. But that's what he said. He walked in and inquired why he was there. Now, another one. Shortly after sitting down, she, of course it was a lady, brought out a line of cosmetics and started a strong sales pitch. Again, this happened during a job interview. Something else people did. A man brought in his 5 children and a cat. Somebody else told the manager in charge of the hiring, and the manager who was interviewing him. He said, if I hired him, I would soon learn to regret it. That's quite some way to start an interview and get a job. Now, something else a person did, arrived with a snake around her neck, said she took her pet everywhere. And one last thing that this AccuTemp temporal personnel service found in their interview of the hiring manager is that when asked about loyalty, the particular person showed a tattoo of his girlfriend's name. You might laugh at hearing all these things. However, these are things that happened, and I'm pretty sure there are some other things similar to this, or more extraordinary things than this, happening during a job interview. Now, if you are a HR manager, or if you work in HR, maybe you would like to share with us some of your experiences. Now this concludes this part of our video lecture for our introduction to management. Stay tuned for the next part of our class.